Hi, I'm Tom King. I'm the founder of Toolkit.law with our webinars directed Gigi Khan joining us from Pakistan. And we are here with the leadership of LimestoneDX. We're here with Andrew Bright, the CEO, and Kirk Rittenberry, the director of sales. And we are here on an exciting topic. And we're going to talk about oral fluid drug testing. And Andrew, just right off the bat, what has changed about oral fluid drug testing?
So the product that we've launched in the oral fluid drug testing space is called QuikSal, and it is a revolutionary oral fluid rinse. And so this means that as opposed to collecting saliva via a cotton ball or some other collection device, you can just swish and spit, and the same with repeat in a cup.
Okay,
And
so
so we,
for any family law attorney, for I was just talking to a district attorney about this for one of the largest cities in North America, and I explained this to them instead of doing, taking it from a urine sample, not all, so it seems like this is revolutionary in the way it's collected, what it's collected, the accuracy and the cost, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the main benefit or the main thing that we're leveraging is the increase in the mass spectrometer machines that we use that has happened in the last 3 or 4 years. This has allowed us to radically increase our ability to detect low levels of compounds. So that meaning even a small saliva sample, we're able to detect for over 90 drugs and their metabolites. Metabolites being something you don't often see in oral fluid drug testing, giving you almost the identical picture that you would get from a urine sample, and you don't have to be in the business of watching other human beings urinate. So this is really going a long way. And anytime you have sensitive situations or you're working with minors or whatnot, this is going to go a long way in allowing you to get the drug tests you need with as limited interaction, uncomfortable interaction as possible.
Well, not only that, but now you can collect in the courtroom. I
Correct. Yeah,
mean,
you
I
need
mean,
no
the
specialized
judge the
facilities.
judge can say, "You stay there. You don't leave the courtroom. They don't have to go to a side room anymore." I hadn't even thought about collecting from minors, um, but also accuracy, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the ability to find the metabolites is really what has put QuikSol over over and above our competitors in the oral fluid space, because those metabolites really give you a fuller picture of what's been ingested in the body, how the body's metabolizing it through, and what is the time frame within which you have ingested that. Previously, oral fluid devices, they could give you maybe like a yes, no answer or whatnot, but now we're able to give quantitative results across a plethora of drug compounds.
So let's anybody just jump in at any time. I'm looking at this slide that you prepared. First in class oral fluid collection, fast turnaround times, and customizable toxicology menu. Can you explain those three concepts, either of you?
Certainly. So the main issue here, and we figured it's best conveyed by the concept of swish and spit. So think about like you're doing a mouthwash for maybe like a dental mouthwash. You're going to take 2.5 milliliters of liquid. You're going to swish it in your mouth for 30 seconds to 1 minute, spit in a tube, and you're done. That in the oral fluid space, that could take up to 10 minutes with the antiquated technology that we're replacing. And then in the urine space, obviously, there's a whole production of having to go and urinate in front of another person. For fast turnaround times, we're 24 hours from when it gets in the lab. This is some technical improvements we've made in the lab, allowing us to take the sample directly onto the machines as opposed to doing some really complicated science to clean them up. And then for the customizable menu, we're able to report back what is needed on a client by client basis. So if you only want to look for certain drugs, maybe opioids, maybe cocaine, maybe behavioral health drugs, if it's a behavioral health or mental health court, we can do all that. And so you see what you want to see and you don't see what you want to see.
So Kirk, when we look at to the 80 countries which are the target markets of Toolkit.law, I would think one thing are jurisdictions, right? A county or a province or a large city, they're going to care about ease of collection, turnaround time, but also cost, right, Kirk?
Correct. And I think one of the things that we've experienced, Sumner County, Tennessee, was one of the first drug courts that we were able to get into, and really, and we collected 38 people in 22 minutes,
Oh my
because
gosh.
we can also do a mass collection. And really, to be frank, Tom, the only reason that we couldn't get sort of two groups of 20 was because they had a room that only accommodated about 10 of the folks. These folks were in the state-funded IOP program in Sumner County. If we had had a room that could accommodate 20 people, we could have probably done it in about 15 minutes.
Now, we all know Bruce Jeffries, the president of National Screening Center, one of the most highly respected collection centers in North America.
Right.
I know that he did a test on his own. He had someone who was required to take a urine test. And I think he probably told one of you about this, right? And then he said, "Hey, would you let me give you this free other test?" And your test detected things that the urine test didn't.
That's correct. Yep. And
Right.
Taylor can speak to why that is.
Yeah, well, and so in that particular instance, that's a function of our lower limits, i.e., our increased sensitivity. So down to 1 nanogram per mil, which is in industry leading in the ability to detect these things. And so in that situation, the urine test was just tested too high, and so they weren't going to find use in that particular individual, even though based on history and other tests, for instance, a hair test, they knew that individual was still using. So in that case, you see the benefit of oral fluid. And that's just a sensitivity level. There's a whole other discussion about fake urine, adulterated urine, which in its own is a whole multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah, or your sister's urine and it shows that he's pregnant, right?
Yep.
And we've all heard the stories, right, from Bruce and others, with people that'll have heated bags on the back of their backs with a tube coming between the legs. And all those things.
The amount of effort that goes into faking urine test is always surprising. But here,
if they put that much effort into their rehab,
100%. But here, all you're doing, you can stand directly in front of the person. They swish in their mouth, spit in a tube, and they're done. They're done. The collector is done. So you're not only you can save money on collection time, and you also don't need two same-sex collectors. Another area where you're able to help drive your costs down, because you can, males can collect females and vice versa.
And Gigi, having just spent 16 days in Pakistan with part of our Toolkit.law team, where you're based, as a family law attorney, in a culture that's 99.9% Muslim, right? And doing testing and watching someone's penis or vagina and the different sensitivities of different cultures, right?
Absolutely. You're right about that, Tom.
And I would think that when countries, based on whatever their cultures are, I would think that this would just be ground shifting for a culture like Pakistan that, just like everywhere else, has needs like this to test.
Absolutely. You're right about that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this screen, Andrew. When you see this screen, what do you want us to know about this?
So the main highlight here is definitely compared to other oral fluid devices, the swab-based devices, is our breadth of analytes tested. So here you can see all the various classes that we have. Obviously, we have our opioids, we have our recreational drugs, but there's also a whole host of behavioral health drugs, your anticonvulsants, your antidepressants, your antipsychotics. And basically the fuller test menu that we make available allows QuikSal to be used in either a more comprehensive manner, depending on what you're looking for, or it allows you to test in various different settings. Like I mentioned like a behavioral health or a mental health court. Those groups are going to be more focused on, are individuals taking their medications properly as prescribed? Or maybe if you're in more of a drug court or a rehab situation, you may be looking for more of your recreational drugs, or the drugs that are known to be a challenge for that individual. So unlike other oral fluids, when maybe you just have 16 drugs, or maybe they're only class-based, we're able to actually look at all of these, as well as the parent drug and the metabolite. And that understanding that metabolite is key to helping understand the complete story of a drug test.
So, Kirk, when we're talking about pricing based on the US dollar, as these 80 countries of the Toolkit.law target markets, what is the cost for the end user, for the person being tested, based on the US dollar? What's the approximate cost of the test?
Well, I think, again, that will range. I think, we go anywhere from, say, $45 to $75. I mean, clinically speaking, we don't deal with that a lot because that's stuff that's built through the insurance. But from a cash pay price, if you just walked in off the street into a clinic, you pay $75. A lot of that's predicated upon volume.
At the high end.
Correct. Yeah, correct. But most of that's predicated upon volume. So, and Taylor can answer that a little bit better.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, that's the retail price, and then obviously what we're comparing ourselves to is that full urine confirmation, right? So oftentimes you'll get kind of, I'll just call them rinky-dink urine tests, right? Looks for five things, looks for super high limits for that in situation we talked about earlier, Tom, where you're not going to find anything. You're running that test just checking a box. You're not actually trying to help your client or your donor or your patient, whoever you're helping with this drug test. And so that's where that comes in. It's the depth and breadth of this test that really shines.
Now, Andrew, when we talk about hair follicle tests, maybe they go back 12 months. I'm sorry, 4 months, right? 4 months.
Yes.
And my trick I would always do is I said, no, say to my clients, I'd say, now, if you take a hair follicle test, knowing that they go back 12 months, will you fail? And if they go,
There you go.
when they
And they're
start to
fine.
do the math to count whether or not, because everyone knows if they did it in 6 months, but apparently no one remembers if they did it within between 6 and 12. But really, I think from what I understand, a zero tolerance 12 panicle hair follicle test is a good snapshot of up to about 4 months. Is that accurate, Andrew?
Correct. Yes. The hair follicle test and sometimes some of the nail tests will go back a good amount of time.
Okay, say good amount of time. I'm not letting you off on that. What's a
So
good
yes, you're correct. It's 4 to 6 months is what they talk about within the industry. It depends on your personal metabolism. It depends on your heavy, your how much you're using, how long you've been using. Like if you've been using a heavy cannabis user for many years, you might be positive on a hair follicle test for, greater than 12 months. But four to
now?
6 months is a good number.
Now, urine is a great snapshot for 36 to 48 hours. Do I have that right?
Urine can go a little longer. Again, when you're getting it, so hair follicle is only usually a limited amount of compounds that can be tested because it's a very difficult matrix to work with. So in urine, we like to say about 1 to 4 days is what you would see for urine. So if you use
Okay.
it, you won't see it till about one day. Depends. We've all had asparagus for dinner, and you've used it by the end of the evening. But most compounds that come out in your urine will show up in that one day-ish time and go about 4. Now, things like cannabis and stuff could last much longer, but that's about the time frame.
So, and I see your onboarding form here. So when we talk about the fluid testing, that's a snapshot for what period of time?
So for oral fluid testing, you're looking at 6 hours. So you can take much earlier, right? And that gives it some interesting discussion points regarding roadside testing for driving under the influence of drugs or post-accident, in testing at employment or workplace, that type of situation, because you can see it much more quickly. Additionally, we're looking directly for the psychoactive compounds. For instance, for THC, we're actually looking for psychoactive THC. So similar to how
So if urine goes back maybe 1 to 4 days, how far does the saliva testing go?
So it'll start about 6 hours, and then it'll go about up to 48 to 72, depending on what the compound is. So it's about 1 day shorter than urine on balance. Now we extend that time frame because we're looking for much lower limits, and we're looking for those late stage metabolites.
Ah.
So we're very comparable. Even though the window's off by about a day, we have about a 90% co-positivity rate, and that's just because people are either taking their medicine on time or they're not. They're struggling with addiction and they'll have a stopwatch out, right? So
National Screening Center, I think they just condition the lawyers. They tell them that urine only goes back 2 days. I think they're just kind of building in some fudge.
Yeah, because again, that gives you the breadth to cover all of the situations, right? Everyone's metabolism is different. How they ingest drugs is different. How it goes through their body. So you see we'll see people who are positive for weeks, but that is just it's the variability within the human population.
When we
The one
look
thing
at this onboarding form that's on the screen, what's an important thing when it comes to onboarding for people who collect samples?
So from the onboarding perspective, one of our main benefits is that everything can be electronically through our portal. And so the onboarding form is critical for either it could be a particular court, it could be a collection center, it could be a particular law office, however they want to do it. We get them with this form properly set up at the front end. Everything can be seamless, everything can be paperless. They're able to
So
order
it's an online process?
It can be. So we have both. We service both because we want to be amenable to all different types. But everything can be online. You can order your test online. You can get your results online. Everything can be done seamlessly and paperlessly.
What are we looking here on this next screen?
So this is a requisition form. So in the clinical space, this is what we use, very similar to a chain of custody form. So it depends on the level of stringency that you're looking for with your collection process. If you're able to do a requisition, this form will work very well. We collect the needed information. You select the test that you want, and everyone sends it in. If you're looking more for a chain of custody, if that's what's needed for your particular process, we have an existing five-part multi-part form that can be filled out in the same information as a requisition, but then you can give out copies to the donors. You can give copies to the if it's an employer who ordered the test or a court who ordered the test, and we're just able to keep things a little more streamlined. So both are available.
What do we need to know about this screen right now?
So for this is showing you the 90 some compounds that I mentioned earlier across all the different compounds. So for instance, for opioids here, you can see all the stuff we're looking for. We're looking for everything from your opioid antagonists, such as naltrexone and buprenorphine for drug use, or you're looking for your prescriptions, your hydrocodone, your oxycodone, or you're looking for your illicits, such as heroin and the like. For amphetamines, you can see, we're looking for not only amphetamine itself, which is going to be prescribed, but you're looking for your ecstasy or your methamphetamine, that type of stuff. So this is obviously made available. You can kind of see everything that we're looking for and everything that we have the ability to look for. And now again, you can order one of these, you can order all of these. That's up to you and what your use case is.
When you do the testing from your end, I'm curious. Do you basically test for everything, or do you only test for what they request?
So 95% of the time, we will test for everything. It's just the way that the test works. It's the most efficient way for us to drive it through. What that means, I think what you're getting to, Tom, is that if you go back and you need something, we usually have it. So we'll run that test. We'll report what you ask. But if you come in back in later and say, hey, what about X? We can usually go back in, look at the raw data, and report out X. So that is a function of going directly to the mass spectrometry machines, which are those are the big boy machines.
Super. Let's go back here.
Tom, while you're doing that, can I make a point also?
Oh, please.
Two things. One thing is, as Taylor mentioned, we run this on the same machines that laboratories run. They're called LCMS machines, liquid chromatography mass spectrometry. So we run this on the same machines that folks would run urine on. Second thing is, as Taylor mentioned, we're the best out there in terms of oral collection, and we beat urine by a mile because of all the things we're talking about. We often get confused, and I don't want people to do that. We're QuikSal. There's one other oral test called QuantaSol. It has a red cap in it, little blue solution. It can take up to 10 minutes to collect or longer. It has a felt tube underneath the tongue, and the patient has to sit there until the indicator stick turns blue. And then on top of that, if you're fortunate to be able to collect that, you send it off to the lab, it comes back, and it's limited what they test for. As Taylor mentioned, we're the only laboratory that's doing this test and testing for all the things that are out there. QuantaSol is very limited. It only does opioids, benzos, I think illicits. Okay. And most times if you get a test back, it'll say quantity insufficient. So I don't want people to get confused between QuantaSol and QuikSal.
So what in the here in the United States, I'm based in the city of Houston, the energy capital of the world, probably the 6th largest city in North America. I've never heard of that solution that you're talking about.
Right. And as we mentioned, our partner, Bruce, he knows of it, but he also could immediately see that the limitations of that type of product. As I said, I just wanted to make that point because QuantaSol is very close. QuikSal, ours is short for quick saliva. So
great. One of the hardest things, in law school, we didn't cover much of this chemistry.
Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of in-depth toxicology courses.
Right.
And Gigi, I know your law school's in English in Pakistan, but did you cover much chemistry in law school in Pakistan?
We did not. The only chemistry I learned was
here's a lawyer. You get the results. Do you guys have any resources to help them read results?
So yes, when we're onboarding you, we can provide you with whichever method people are most amenable to, but we can provide slide decks, we can provide kind of instruction sheets, we can provide videos, kind of helping you understand this test either on its own or vis-a-vis a urine test, because most people in the space have seen a urine test before. Maybe they gave a urine test themselves, or they have a general understanding of how it works. And our report looks very different because the bladder is inherently a concentrating organ, and we're drawing directly from the blood cavity via the salivary gland. So you're going to see much lower limits than you're used to seeing in urine. You might see someone be positive for 1,000 units of meth in urine. You're not going, in us, you might see it at 15. So it's just very different. So I call it the same but different. And so we can provide that. And then additionally, in the US, I know, for instance, the MROs, the medical review officers that review urine, there is also now a training for them to review oral. So if a group uses an MRO to do the final adjudication of the lab reports, they are also now trained up to use these as well.
So when we look at this final report, as a lawyer, what am I looking for in a final report?
So from what your perspective here is, you're going to focus on this top box here, because this is going to give you the summary report of the entire data set. Now you can go look at all the individual ones as you scroll down, but this top box is what we're here. So if you give us a med list, and this is sometimes relevant for certain units and sometimes not, we will be able to compare the medications an individual is taking versus what we find. So if you tell us that you're taking Suboxone for your opioid use disorder, and we find buprenorphine, it will show up in here as green. So green being good. If you don't
mean
give
people don't always say what they're taking?
no, yeah. So sometimes they don't tell us the full truth, which I am always.
I mean, I know all of Gigi's clients always tell the truth. But
Yeah, they do. I think.
yes, they do.
Truth has so many meanings.
Yes, they do. Yeah, sure. Okay.
And so if you go back up to finish the box there, anything that is unexpected, we will show in red. And that's really where you're going to want to focus what you're going through. So we make it very easy. Green is good, red is bad. And here you're going to see the actual chemical that we found. Here we found heroin, methadone, and PCP. You're going to find the actual quantitative result. And then you're going to see the cutoff. A cutoff across the board is 1. We can raise that if a client has a specific need, but we like to go as low as possible, giving us that 0 tolerance, that ZT.
Heroin and method. Heck, this is probably one of Gigi's clients we're looking at. I don't know.
I'm not saying anything.
Neither is your client.
Everyone signed an NDA.
Okay. Okay.
So from there you have what you need. So if you need to, or as required via the method that you're doing, you can go through all the individual data. You can see everything we tested for, what the result was, if it was positive, if it's not detected, we just note that hey, we did not find this particular compound in
now,
this.
Andrew, when they do the printout, is it by fault court admissible, at least in American courts?
Yes, I mean, when you have this report, this will serve as your final report, which can be admissible from the lab. Now, you also want to submit that with your chain of custody form if you have a chain of custody, and your requisition if you do requisition. It's your choice how you do it, depending on your requirements of your particular
Does
use.
your output include any aspects of the chain of custody?
So in our electronic portal that I mentioned earlier, we store the chain of custody that we receive electronically next to this document, right? So you can go in, pick both that you need, you output them. There, you can print them out in the same PDF if you need it. And so that's available for that. And then the report serves as the, our work product, and the chain of custody serves as the document demonstrating that the sample was run appropriately.
Now, Gigi, you can see the help sheet I have on the screen now, right?
No, I cannot yet.
Oh, am I not sharing it? I thought it was. Hold on, let me go back to sharing it. Okay. Now you guys also put together something that I thought was really great. Now can you see the help sheet, Gigi?
Yes, I can.
So included in the CLE webinar packet that everyone's going to be looking at right now, you put together a great help sheet. Let's scan just down each of these columns. So when it comes to sample collection, what do people need to know at the top level, Kirk?
Well, I think for this product, what they need to know is that obviously we discussed the ease of use. Taylor touched on most of those. What we see clinically are some of the same things that you see in the judicial system, which is, or you guys probably see it even worse, is, if there's an opportunity for, say, a defense attorney to say, oh, the way that this collected, it was in a room and there was these issues. all of that goes away because you can do it. And I believe Bruce has a story currently about one. I don't know if you've heard it, where the judge ordered the inmate, I don't know, whatever you call, ordered the person to take the test right there in the courtroom. So that's never going to happen with urine, if that makes sense. Obviously, you're going to have to go off someplace secluded. And then, of course, the person can be like, oh, I already, used the bathroom restroom. I can't give a specimen. And it's all the issues that we're all familiar with.
Or I love it when they shave every single hair
Yeah,
off their body.
I've seen
they
yeah,
shave their
yeah.
butt crack. They
And
shave their eyebrows. They
and
shave everything.
yes. And in this
Gigi,
space,
you probably haven't seen that.
yeah, right.
I have not.
I have.
And I'll say this is one of the areas where we do see the clinical part run very similar to what you all see, because it's trying to beat the test, so to speak, if that makes sense. And then one of the biggest parts of beating a urine test is try to get into the bathroom and, whatever apparatuses you may be doing or whatever. This is in front of the judge and everyone right there. So that's the biggest thing. And also the fact that it's so quick. It's 30 seconds. Most any other oral is going to take anywhere from, 5 to 10 minutes to collect. And that's if you get enough genetic material out of the mouth to be able to even run the test. And none of those are testing for metabolites and parent drug.
So Andrew, when we look at the right column that you guys put together on this great help sheet regarding chain of custody considerations, do any of these boxes additionally jump out for additional comment to you?
No, not. I mean, this chain of custody is just demonstrating that the oral fluid process can fit seamlessly into the current chain of custody process that people are using now. So again, we're making it easy for you to bring this test on so that we're not redesigning anything and go from there. And again, that can be an electronic CCF, an eCCF, or paper-based. Whatever works in your workflow, we can handle it all. All you need to do is have them spit in a tube.
And of course, if you're one of these test collector companies, the level of training and the negative aspects of doing collection, it's not as much training, and they're not looking at people's private parts, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen some of the restroom facilities set up for this, there are mirrors in every corner. It's just a mess, and you need or there are other certain, like in the probation and parole space. Oftentimes, you have to find a facility that these individuals can come to on their 15, at lunch, after work, and it doesn't work here. They can come, or you can go to them even, but you can get there quickly, get the sample collected, get them back to living their life. It's just much simpler overall, and you get out of the business of being observed or having to observe other human beings urinate.
We have about 2 minutes left. Looking at on page 2 of the help sheet you put together, the blue column, sample processing. Kirk, what stands out to you that's worth reinforcing one more time?
I mean, to be quite frank, I think we touched on most all of it. I mean, we've highlighted the advantages of it. I mean, you know what? I think at this point, usually when I'm in the clinics, I do an actual demo. I show how quick that it can be done, like when I'm in the clinical space, and that may be something we add to the video later. But I think when people actually see how easy it is, their mind's blown that they can get the same information with such little work as all of the issues that it takes to when you're collecting urine.
It's so easy, a lawyer could do it.
Exactly.
Or
a judge.
Easy. It's that easy.
And you know what? I will say this, Tom. I will say this, because that just jogged them. Very often with this type of test, you can hand the tube to the person who's going to be giving the test. They do it themselves, spit it back in and cap it. And there's never even anything you have to touch at that point.
Do some collection places videotape them testing themselves?
Yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with telemedicine. We have several clients that they do telemedicine where they observe the patient doing the test over the camera, obviously, and then they go on with their therapy and all that kind of thing. So, and that's going to catch fire pretty quickly too, because again, you can't observe someone use the restroom over the camera. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And there are groups that have apps that are kind of AI related. They'll videotape you doing it, making sure that you stay on screen the whole time, and those are used in certain purposes. But with this device, you can be on screen the entire time doing it. No matter what, at least in any way that I can come up with, you're not going to be able to do that with a urine test, at least not in a way that you can
No way.
see.
No way. Not,
So,
not unless it's not an X-rated website.
yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, if you even ask someone, hey, we're going to try to observe you, they'd be like, no way. And if in your all space, if there was a defense attorney, they'd say, no way. Fine, we'll do this, so.
Adam, are we almost at the point where you could send a kit to somebody, they could stay on camera, they could show the corresponding tracking number, give it, and you see them seal it up,
Yeah,
and then they
we do
take
that
it to
now.
their own UPS
Yeah, I
store?
mean, we do that now in the clinical space. So in the US, because it's not blood, urine, or feces, we're able to ship it USPS. So you can actually give it online, drop it in the mail. So you just put the flag up, the mailman gets it. You don't have to go down to the UPS store or find a FedEx store. So that's allowed because again, it's just saliva. There's no issue with the biohazard or shipping it that way. So that's available now, and we make that available in our clinical space. And for those clients that have that particular use case, we've been asked about it from some like drug courts, from some IOP programs where the individuals are in more rural settings and they can't get to it for either work or family considerations. Now they can meaningfully participate in that program and help them stay on the path.
We've been speaking with Andrew Bright, and we've been speaking with Kirk Rittenberry of LimestoneDX. The topic has been the oral fluid drug testing involving specifically their product, QuikSal. Kirk, it looks like the web address is right there, limestonedx.com, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody, and this concludes our presentation.